So you come home from a long day of work, set your keys down, and then proceed to step into a wet pile of vomit in the middle of your floor. You take a deep breath and realize I'm probably gonna have to go to the vet now. But what can you expect when you get there? Let's investigate. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Holmes, and welcome to another episode of Pet Doc Sherlock, where I help people solve the mysteries of pets. And if you have a pet, you have inevitably found a pile of vomit on the floor and wondered, how, when, why did that get there? And if you have more than one pet, you're wondering, which of you did this? And then you start to think about that trip to the vet that may come in the future. That being said, if your dog or cat has vomited one time, they otherwise look and act normal, it's perfectly fine to give it about 24 hours to see if it happens again, make sure they're eating and drinking well, and make sure they don't feel bad. That being said, if you find multiple piles of vomit all over the house, they seem like they feel terrible, they don't want to eat anything, they don't want to drink anything, and they continue to vomit, or if it goes into day number 2, then you definitely need to visit the vet. And what's going to happen when you get there? Well, the first thing will be we'll get a weight and we'll start talking to you about a history. What I mean by that is what's happened in the past week or so in your dog or cat's life. Have you changed the food? Have you gotten new treats? Did you have people over for a cookout or something along those lines? Did you have a birthday party? Do you have kids and are any of their toys missing? Etc., etc. There are a million things that cause vomiting in dogs and cats. Here's a short list. And so a lot of those historical questions will rule a lot of those things out. Now, we'll do a physical exam and you wonder, okay, well, what are you going to find on there that's related to the vomiting? We're going to look for fever. We're going to look at the gum color, make sure it's nice and pink, make sure they seem well hydrated, make sure there's no abdominal pain when we poke and prod around their belly. And that, again, helps us rule in or out several things that may be happening. The other thing that helps us is your dog or cat's age. There are certain illnesses that can pop up later in life or certain events that can happen when they're younger. And then we're going to talk to you about tests we can run. And this is where it gets difficult and a little uncomfortable for people and veterinarians alike because we have to start talking about finances. And if you talk to, say, a veterinary school, or when I was in veterinary school, they tell us that you need the minimum database to be able to diagnose anything. That includes a complete blood count, CBC, a chemistry, or internal organ function, which tells us a lot about the function of liver, kidneys, etc., and a urinalysis. Okay, if we do that on every single patient that comes into the hospital, that's several $100s right off the bat. You may not have that money at the time, which is perfectly okay. And this is why I want you to feel confident in telling your veterinarian, okay, I love my dog or cat, but I can't spend past this. Or let's talk to me about what tests we need to run, tell me what they cost, and then we'll try and prioritize which we need to do first and foremost. Because again, if you're doing a CBC, chemistry, and a urinalysis, those are going to tell me a whole lot. Those are going to help me figure out what's going on. But if you've got a puppy who's vomiting, I may want to do x-rays instead of those things if you can't afford everything. Because in puppies, I'm more curious about, okay, did you eat something you shouldn't have and now it's stuck in there? And again, x-rays alone are going to be a couple $100 to a few $100 depending on where you live. And so if you were to do all the tests that we could do, all the blood work, x-rays, etc., I mean, you're pushing beyond $500+ easily just to try to figure out what it is. I feel like both sides should be very upfront and say, hey, this is what I think we need to do for your pet. This is what it costs. And you should feel perfectly fine saying, I can't do that today. What do we really need to do? And let's go from there. So that's a very important thing. I know I harped on it a little bit, but finances are tough and we need to have honest conversations about them. And so, depending on what we find on blood work if we run it, depending on what we find on x-rays if we run it, will tell us what we need to do to make your dog or cat feel better. There are other types of blood work, other tests we may need to do if it seems like it's a more extensive problem. But for the puppy who ate a toy and that toy's stuck in the stomach or small intestine, we gotta go to surgery to get that out. For the older dog whose kidney values aren't great, we need to start talking about kidney failure. For the cat who is older and vomiting and losing weight, we may run a thyroid and need to talk about thyroid disease or diabetes. There's a host of things that we can find. But one of the things that we will generally treat with, no matter the cause, is an injection of something called Cerenia. If your dog or cat is vomiting, and vomiting a lot, they don't want to eat anything. So you can't treat them with a pill, we have to give them an injection. Again, another cost, and it's not a super inexpensive injection either. So it's based on weight. If you have a St. Bernard, it's going to be very expensive. If you have a cat or a Chihuahua, not so bad. The other things that will help, no matter the cause of vomiting, are what we call bland diet. That doesn't mean it tastes bad or has no flavor. It means it's easily digestible. So think about when you have a stomach bug, you want chicken noodle soup. We do the same for our dogs and cats. Another common treatment that we use is probiotics. So if you have a lot of vomiting, the kind of stomach and intestines take on a different environment. You have a different acidity, you've got inflammation, and the good bacteria that's in there start to kind of die off and go away. The bad bacteria start to overgrow. And so with probiotics, we can kind of reset that. And so those are the big things that will likely happen. You'll have to give a history. There will be an exam. We'll talk about what tests we need. Depending on the test, we'll talk about treatments. But in general, an injection of Cerenia, a easily digestible diet, and some probiotics are likely in the cards. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about what to expect when you take your dog or cat in for vomiting and the type of conversations you can have with your vet. I hope it was helpful. And until next time, remember to keep your pets happy and healthy.